Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Iraqi resistance claims victory as U.S. withdraws combat troops. Mahmoud Abbas and Ehud Barak held secret talks in Jordan. And protesters defy Kashmir curfew after young boys killing by government forces. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
Iraqi resistance factions affirm that the U.S. administration's decision to withdraw its troops from Iraq is the result of what they describe as their persisting jihad that has lasted over 7 years.
However, political observers believe that the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Iraq will place the resistance factions in front of new challenges.
Iraqi resistance groups, along with the insurgent forces fighting against the occupation, consider the schedule of US withdrawal from Iraq as their own victory. They believe it would not have been achieved had it not been for the high price that was paid by the US, both financially and morally. At the same time, they also believe that the partial withdrawal does not change the nature of the remaining troops, viewing them as occupation forces, and that their presence does not alter the situation, saying that it's imposed by the war's developments. According to political observers, the withdrawal of US combat troops will place the resistance factions in front of new challenges related to their military operations, political agendas and public relations. Their chance of directly targeting US forces would be largely limited after August 31st. A large-scale US troop withdrawal from cities was carried out in July 2009.
والتي سبق أن شهدت تراجعا ملحوظا بعد انسحاب القوات الأمريكية من المدن في حزيران يونيو من العام.
Perhaps most of the factions' list of bombing operations targeting the remaining US bases and camps will be reduced in the upcoming period. Military experts believe that the effects of these operations will be limited.
والتي يرى خبراء عسكريون أن آثارها ستكون محدودة.
Most resistance groups, except for Al-Qaeda and Ansar al-Islam, have been recently attempting to neutralize Iraqi forces. They forbid their supporters from putting the Iraqi forces on the list of targets, as long as these forces do not initiate any attacks against them or join the US forces in military operations.
لكن هذه الفصائل ستجد نفسها اليوم أمام قوات عراقية.
But today, these factions will find themselves in front of the Iraqi forces, which are responsible for increasing security measures, protecting the political process, and providing a safe environment for 93 military bases and camps, housing about 50,000 soldiers, who are scheduled to pull out by the end of 2011. Under these pressures, will the factions seek to unify their goals and create a new slogan to be added to the slogans against the occupation? The reality indicates that if the resistance groups agree on the slogan of liberation, then they will have different perspectives and insights for it. Therefore, they have not been able, nor will they be able, to create an agenda that brings them all together. Some consider the faction's concentration on an ideological, methodological, and maybe national basis to be an achievement. Others consider it a prelude to a competition to fill the void that US withdrawal will leave, which may later turn into a fight for dominance and influence. They mention the fight that took place nearly 3 years ago between Al-Qaeda and other factions, when they believed that the Americans' defeat was imminent.
The Islamic Front for the Iraqi Resistance said that it has managed to destroy a U.S. military vehicle, announcing the end of a campaign that lasted 100 days and concluded with the withdrawal of U.S. combat troops from Iraq.
The front released a video showing one of its members throwing an explosive device at a U.S. vehicle. Meanwhile, the men of the Naqshbandi order in Iraq said that it managed to destroy a U.S. vehicle by detonating an explosive device. The authenticity of both videos has not been confirmed by a third party.
The Security Council has unanimously approved Lebanon's request to extend UNIFIL's mandate in southern Lebanon. This one-year extension will last into the end of August 2011. The mandate and the number of forces will remain the same. This comes after Parliament adopted a resolution in which UNIFIL's role in Lebanon was described as positive. From Lebanon, this report by Ali Hashim.
4 years have passed on since the Second Lebanon War ended. On the surface, calm here seems to be the master of the situation. However, behind the mound, a barrel of gunpowder is hiding, and it could explode at any moment. Last month's clashes in the town of Al-Adaisi is evidence of it. Resolution 1701 ended the war between Hezbollah and Israel. It is implemented by the United Nations forces that are spread along the Blue Line, which was agreed upon as a way to determine southern Lebanon's borders. We are now on a UNIFIL patrol in southern Lebanon. The forces will roam around some towns near the Blue Line. Is the blue line behind the fence?
The blue line is here. It is delineated by the fence. But in other places, it's behind the fence, between the blue line and the technical fence.
Along the blue line, thousands of international soldiers patrol in their vehicles, safeguarding the calm. However, at times they become one of the reasons for the tension. On more than one occasion, these forces were criticized by some in the south who accused it of implementing a special agenda on their land, a claim that has been repeatedly denied by the forces. Even if the tension can have negative repercussions on the ground, it usually does not have any connection to the presence of these forces. Despite everything else, the Lebanese state insists on renewing the UNIFIL mandate. In addition, Hezbollah, despite its criticism, does not seem to want the forces to leave.
Hezbollah is not opposed to extending UNIFIL's mission in southern Lebanon. However, it is an opportunity to reaffirm a number of positions and ideas that express the Lebanese view of Resolution 1701. Perhaps it is also the right time to highlight the report that came out of the investigation into the heroic Adaisi confrontation. Because, according to what has been reported, even though it hasn't been officially published yet, this report adopts the Israeli narrative.
Hezbollah might have many questions. However, Israel also has questions, which it sends to UNIFIL over the underground presence of the military party's forces close to the border. This is the town of Ghajar that Lebanon is demanding that Israel leave. It is one of many challenges faced by UNIFIL in this region, and perhaps it is one of the challenges that seems, until now, impossible to solve.
Prior to the start of the direct negotiations with the Palestinians, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is seeking to reassure the Israeli right on the settlements in the West Bank. Netanyahu appeared at a gathering of the Likud party, which he heads, and confirmed his commitment to having the Palestinians recognize Israel as a Jewish state and guarantee the security of the Hebrew state. On the other hand, Netanyahu considered Likud the only party capable of taking bold steps to achieve real peace with the Palestinians. Preparations for direct talks took place during a secret meeting held between Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak during the latter's visit to the Jordanian capital Amman last Sunday. According to the Israeli radio, the meeting, which was held in a private house in Amman, consisted of discussions over security arrangements in the West Bank. The meeting was held in concurrence with the launch of the negotiations. The ongoing controversy in the United States around the building of a mosque, the Cordoba House near Ground Zero in the center of New York, has adopted a political facet. This is what the president and founder of the Cordoba Initiative, Faisal Abdul Rauf, confirmed in a special interview with Dubai TV's news department. Abdul Rauf, who is touring the Gulf to gain support for his plan to build the Islamic Center and mosque in the center of Manhattan, renewed his call for improving relations between Muslims and the West. The center will cost $100 million.
It is 2 blocks from Ground Zero.
It is 2 blocks from Ground Zero, and for this reason, a small number of people were opposed to the construction of the mosque. It is a cultural center, and anyone can become a member. Those who objected to the plan want to politicize it and use it as reason for division. What we need today is a new outlook, as I said in my book, a new way of looking at Muslims and at the relations between Muslims and non-Muslims in the West and the entire world.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is making final preparations for tomorrow's departure for Washington and the launch of direct peace talks on September 2nd. Netanyahu's chief negotiator, Yitzhak Molcho, leaves for the U.S. later today. He will hold preparatory talks with U.S. Mideast envoy George Mitchell. But there is intense controversy in the Netanyahu-led government on the settlement issue, despite Netanyahu's assurances that he will not be discussing an end to the settlement freeze during the summit. This morning, Netanyahu at the last minute cancelled a scheduled meeting of the Forum of 7 top decision-makers in his cabinet. They were to discuss the upcoming peace talks. And many see the cancellation as a sign of the deep divisions in the government over the settlement issue. As for PA President Mahmoud Abbas, he and his entourage leave for Washington tonight from Jordan. The Arabic Al-Quds Al-Arabi newspaper reports that Jordanian officials gave Abbas detailed maps and aerial photos of the West Bank and East Jerusalem from the time before 1967, when Jordan controlled those areas. In a televised address last night, Abbas warned that if Israel continues to expand settlements, it will jeopardize the peace talks and will have to, quote, Israel will have to bear the responsibility for their failure. Abbas stressed that the direct talks would deal with all the final status issues: Jerusalem, refugees, borders, security, settlements, water, and the release of prisoners. He said he hopes to find in Israel a partner that is, quote, able to take genuine and responsible decisions so as to end the occupation. Well, Deputy Foreign Minister Dani Ayalon met today with his Japanese counterpart, who's on a visit to Jerusalem. The Japanese Deputy Foreign Minister, Koichi Takemasa, said in order for the peace talks to succeed, Israel must cease all construction, not only in the West Bank, but in East Jerusalem as well. For his part, Ayalon had a message for the PA president. He said if the peace talks do collapse, it will not be because of Israeli settlements.
Let me say very clearly that the issue is not a freeze of settlement. Settlement is only but one issue of many issues that we have outstanding with the Palestinians. Refugees, borders, security arrangements, and many, many others. Anyone who tries to put a precondition, this is not conducive to move forward. And anyone who tries to put the blame on Israel before the talk started, I think he has to bear the responsibility.
And on the issue of settlements, in Efrat, residents of one of the largest settlements in the West Bank made it clear that they expect to renew building in the near future. This as the settlement movement launched a poster campaign to remind cabinet ministers of their promises to renew construction in Judea and Samaria as soon as the current moratorium ends on September 26. On the eve of the direct talks, most residents of Efrat believe that the upcoming talks can bring peace, but may bring war instead.
The settlements are not the obstacle to peace. The Palestinians are the obstacle to peace. Settlements promote coexistence and peaceful relations.
Unfortunately, our Prime Minister and our leadership made a big mistake in stopping the continuation of the building of our homeland. And we're very much hoping that he will have internalized the fact that he made a big mistake and that come the end of this building freeze, we'll be able to continue to build.
I think direct talks are great. I think the problem is that you have to know who you're talking to. I think history has proven that they're an unreliable partner to speak with, and after they prove themselves to be reliable, then we should talk directly with them.
The director of the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, visited a refugee camp for Pakistan's flood victims. The UN official reaffirmed the importance of preventing the spread of epidemics among the refugees.
This baby came into the world to witness the disastrous floods and begin her life story with the miseries that her displaced family is enduring. The floods have forced them to flee to this graveyard. And as young as this baby is, she has to bear the burden of deprivation and disease. But despite all the suffering, the face of the disaster-stricken mother glows due to her bundle of joy. Her siblings are also happy to welcome their newborn sister.
I am happy to have given birth to my daughter, but I'm sad for what happened to us. We lost everything. Here we are, next to the dead in a graveyard.
This graveyard does not only tell stories of the dead. Othman, an old man in his 70s, was carried by his family to this graveyard as well, not to be buried, but to escape death. He has been grappling with tuberculosis for a while now, and his wife Sondri looks after him and tries to ease his pain. In this graveyard, there is no shelter, food, or medicine, and the lack of transportation confines Othman to the bed.
We lost everything except for the clothes that we're wearing. We don't have any money to treat my husband or to buy food.
Their age difference keeps them apart, but suffering keeps them together. Othman's sad condition is similar to that of many flood victims. In this graveyard, both the dead and the living are silent, and suffering is still written on the faces of these disaster-afflicted people. After joining the dead, they will join the hundreds of displaced. Life and death no longer means much to these people, after having lost everything they had.
Moving on to Indian-administered Kashmir, angry people have defied curfew to hold demonstrations following the killing of another young protester. Thousands of paramilitary troops were deployed to maintain law and order in the restive region. Shana Bhatt has more.
Protesters have defied the curfew and clashed with police in Indian-administered Kashmir after an 11-year-old boy was killed and a relative of a senior pro-independence leader was injured by police gunfire. On Monday, the 11-year-old boy was shot dead by police in the southern town of Anantnag, 55 kilometers from summer capital Srinagar, during a demonstration against New Delhi's rule in the valley region. Each death has triggered further protests in defiance of strict all-day curfews. Since June 11th, about 65 protesters and bystanders have been killed, mostly by security forces who have opened fire on rallies when being pelted with stones.
Many a death has taken place due to the stampede. Many a death has taken place when we have fired even tear smoke cells, which is totally non-lethal weapon. CRPF is not at all a trigger-happy force. CRPF Jawans are maintaining utmost restraint. We are just trying to use these non-lethal weapons like tear smoke cells and this rubber pellets and the plastic pellets, but even then there are deaths.
Despite the fact Indian Prime Minister has ordered officials to use non-lethal measures to quell demonstrators in Kashmir, civilians continue to be getting killed at the hands of Indian security forces. This has led to more public anger, having instigated more violence in the region. And in Srinagar, a relative of pro-independence leader Yasin Malik was seriously injured on Monday by police gunfire. Eyewitnesses said police opened fire without provocation. Police initially said they had opened fire to quell stone-throwing demonstrators, but later described the incident as unfortunate. Later, police sources said a constable who fired the shots has been suspended and taken into custody. In Srinagar, people took to streets at many places shouting slogans against the Indian rule. Shops, schools, businesses in the region have been closed for the most part of the last 80 days. Following the latest wave of violence, top pro-independence leader Saeed Ali Shah Gilani has set preconditions before New Delhi for the resolution of the Kashmir issue. He has asked India to accept Jammu and Kashmir as an international dispute, to demilitarize state under supervision of a credible agency, to release all political prisoners, and make sure that no killing and no arrest will take place, among other issues.
If India and the international community are serious in resolving the dispute, it must begin with the end of Indian oppression, which in itself will create conditions for resolution. We urge the international community to persuade India for creating conditions necessary for peace and resolution.
Separately, the Indian Army said 9 militants were killed while trying to cross over into Kashmir from across the line of control, the de facto border between India and Pakistan. Hundreds of thousands of troops are based in Kashmir to fight a 2-decade-long civil unrest against Indian rule that has left more than 47,000 people dead. Shahana Bhatt reporting for Press TV in Indian-administered Kashmir.
The head of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, Ali Akbar Salehi, has assured neighboring countries that the Bushehr power plant possesses the highest nuclear safety levels. In an interview with Al Alam, Salehi confirmed that the station is designed to protect itself by itself.
It is designed in a way that prevents the occurrence of any incidents. In case anything happens, it can protect itself. I mean, it's not Chernobyl, America's 3 Mile Island, or other plants in which something happened. God forbid, God forbid, God forbid, in case something happens, the plant will protect itself and the incident will remain in place. I mean, it will be local and very limited. Limited as in limited by the building itself.
Salehi clarified that the transfer of fuel into the Bushehr nuclear plant is ongoing and that nearly half of the fuel rods have been supplied. Salehi expects this phase to be completed within 10 days.
لحد الآن انتقل حوالي أكثر من 60.
Until now, we have transferred more than 60 fuel rods to build the plant's original structure. In addition, as you have seen, the transfer is a very slow process.
الانتقال أمر بطيء جدا. يعني يستغرق ساعات حتى تنقل الوقود من الخارج إلى.
It can take hours to transfer fuel from the outside to the building. It will take another 10 to 15 days to complete the transfer of the 163 fuel rods to the plant.
163 إلى المبنى الأصلي للمحطة.
Salehi confirmed that Iran will complete the production of the required nuclear fuel for the Tehran plant within 1 year. He disclosed that Iran has produced 25 kilograms of 20% enriched uranium.
As for Tehran's fuel, Iran continues to produce fuel, as in manufacture fuel, for the Tehran plant. God willing, this will happen. God willing, in 1 year. So far, we have produced 25 kilograms of 20% enriched uranium.
A Russian delegation representing various Islamic organizations embarked on a landmark visit to China. The delegation met with representatives of the Islamic Association of China and toured a number of ancient Chinese cities. In an interview with our Russia Today correspondent Wafa Aldawi, the head of the Russian Islamic Cultural Center, Abdul Wahid Niazov, said that cooperation between Russian Muslims and their Chinese counterparts may move Chinese-Russian relations forward.
Welcome to our program. I would like to introduce Mr. Abdul Wahid Niazev, the head of Russia's Islamic Cultural Center. Mr. Abdul Wahid, welcome.
May God's peace, mercy and blessing be upon you.
A few days ago, a Russian delegation representing various Islamic organizations, including yours, returned from Moscow. What was the objective of your visit, and was it successful? Were you able to address all the issues you outlined before departing to Beijing?
The objective of our visit is to help boost our relations with Chinese Muslims. There's an apparent similarity between Russia and China in terms of hosting Islamic societies, as both countries are home to large Islamic Islamic communities. The number of Muslims living in Russia exceeds 23 million. In contrast, the number of Chinese Muslims stands at 40 million. Both Russia and China are multi-religious and multi-ethnic nations. Like in China, Muslims live across the various parts of Russia, and their history is more than 1,000 years old. For example, 2 mosques, one in southern Dagestan and the other in southern China, were built at the dawn of Islam. The age of Islam in Russia and China is more than 14 centuries old. The nations of Islam in Russia and China are facing a similar set of circumstances. Both nations oppose conflicts fueled by separatists. We, on behalf of the Russian Muftis Council, have signed a memorandum of understanding with the Islamic Association of China. We agreed to hold periodic educational and cultural exchanges, in addition to launching exchange student programs between our institutes of jurisprudence. One of the main objectives of our visit was to take a first-hand look at the conditions of Muslims following the tragic incidents that occurred in the Xinjiang region. We received valuable and reassuring information from the Chinese side, confirming that the incidents were contained and they didn't turn to ethnic and religious clashes.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news. Read our blog. Get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs, programs which connect you to the world.